VIC Fellowship, and VIC stands for Vaccine Information Coalition. You're listening to Progressive Radio Network, the most listened to commercial-free and truth radio program in the world. My name is Renee, and the title of our show is What in the Cell is Going On? We're on every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern, which can be accessed live on prn.fm or later on the front page of our vacinfo.org website. Our guest today is the one and only Joy Garner with the controlgroup.org. Welcome again, Joy, and please give our welcome again, and please give our first-time listeners an overview of how our creator's using you to stop this insanity.
Okay, well, I'm definitely a tool, but I'm good and true, and I'm proud to be. The control group was put together after I was initially recruited for a particular strategy, and that strategy to stop the vaccine mandates and ultimately shut them down. There is, in fact, only one strategy that's going to work in a court of law. And despite some of the failed legal efforts that have been made recently against the vaccine mandates, we do still have a judicial branch of government to turn to save us from the corrupt legislative branch of government. And that judicial branch gets stronger every day that President Trump makes these new constitutional appointments to the federal benches, which is where we're headed. Now, our strategy here in terms of gathering evidence, the primary facet of it is to get back to the basics of what is the scientific method, because we all know that's lacking in pharma science. We know that our public health agencies are not using basic scientific method in their calculations as to how safe these vaccines are. Right. What they give us is the word rare. When they admit, yeah, it can kill you, it can paralyze you, it can do all these awful things, but don't worry, it's rare. Well, when it comes to scientific method, there's really only one way that a scientist figures out what's causing something, and if it's causing it, what percentage of people exposed to this treatment are having that result, thereby establishing a numerical risk factor. Really hate to break it to people, but the word rare is not a scientific term. It's a marketing slogan. So that is the thing that we're challenging when we go into court. That's our evidential challenge. The idea that these things are rare. And the reason that we need to approach it from this direction is that right now we're living in a legal climate where the United States Supreme Court has already found and upheld repeatedly that our government has the right to inject us with unavoidably safe things that they know and they admit can kill us. However, they've determined that the fact that it kills some of us is rare. It makes it acceptable because it's good for public health. Those are the assumptions that are made with exactly zero evidence to support those assumptions, either that the side effects are rare or that it's overall good for public health. Neither of these things have been challenged. Now, the CDC reports that 99.1% of Americans are vaccinated, at least partially, and most of our children are fully up to date on all of their vaccines, which means that our judicially noticeable, that means you can ask the court to take notice of certain facts going in on your case, which means they become established facts of your case. Mm-hmm. So the noticeable, judicially noticeable numbers that we'll be bringing in as established facts of the case are A, the fact that 99.1% of Americans are vaccinated, and B, the national disease rates. Because when you're talking about a 99.1% vaccinated population, the disease rates for that population are an almost perfect accounting of what happens to a population when they're 99.1% vaccinated. Okay. So the only remaining question here, the information gap that has been intentionally avoided by our health agencies is the question of, well, what are the disease rates for people who never were exposed to this class of product, which means entirely unvaccinated, which means a true control group. The scientific method requires a control or group of controls. Otherwise, there's nothing to measure against when you're doing something. So if you have 6 rats in cages and you're going to take 3 of them and do something to them, you must have the other 3 with nothing done to them.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you don't have a way to determine what's causing things in the treated group. So us rats, us experimental lab rats here in the United States have decided to tally up the results because none of our health agencies will do this. The CDC, when they determined that there were 99.1% of Americans are vaccinated, they did this by telephone survey across the country, randomized computer-generated phone numbers. And then when they finally got through to somebody and somebody answered and agreed to answer the questions, they would just ask them, are you vaccinated? Is there anyone in your household that's entirely unvaccinated? And that's how they put their numbers together. Mm-hmm. However, here they were spending millions of our tax dollars to conduct this survey. And while they had entirely unvaccinated people on the phone willing to talk to them, they didn't ask a single one of them about their health. Mm-mm. No, they just assumed it must be horrible because they must be dying of vaccine starvation. So why ask? Or better yet, maybe they decided it would be unethical.
Oh, yeah. Plus, people don't realize shots, like the tetanus shot, is a vaccination. I have so many people that tell me they got the tetanus shot, but they don't realize. And then they don't realize it's DPT, diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus. So they're not just getting a tetanus shot when they go to the emergency room. They're getting loaded with poison.
I had tried to talk him out of. He said, "I'm going in for a physical."
Oh God.
That translates to, "I'm going in to get a bunch of injections."
No, who's this?
My brother.
Oh, no.
Oh, God. I said, well, be careful. They're pushing those shots, and he said, you're a conspiracy theorist and blah, blah, blah. And the only one I would take is the tetanus. And I said, okay, but, first off, the tetanus is probably not safe. I think you should do some research. You're a conspiracy theorist. And I said, they do combine it with other stuff. And you're a conspiracy theorist, And so about 4 days later, I get a call from him saying, oh, my God, I am as sick as a dog. I can't move. Mm-hmm. Was bedridden for weeks. Yep. Couldn't work. Lost all this money at work. Wow. And basically the way he explained it was he told the doctor, I only want the tetanus. And the doctor said, oh, okay.
They don't know. Yeah, they don't.
And then right after he stuck it in him, he goes, now you're protected from this and that and all this other stuff. And we even threw in a flu shot for you in this one combo. I guess they actually go and draw it out of several vials now in their office and give you one big fat one.
That is super great.
So it's a combination even bigger than what is now mixed into one vial. Mm-hmm. And when I say vial, I mean vile, as in foul. So, the control group is getting traction. We now have enough surveys that our sampling rate is 4,000% higher than what the CDC says will produce a 95% reliability rating in your epidemiological survey. Mm-hmm. There are really, really great lawyers. I'm going to be putting up videos soon with interviewing some of these lawyers that have decided to come in and help.
Wow.
And I'll I'll really know they're all in when they let me use their face in videos.
Exactly.
But I've been talking to them. They've agreed to start doing videos with us. And this will be a forum for the vaccine aware community who is already aware. They don't need to hear how bad vaccines are anymore. They need to hear, how are we going to fix it?
Mm-hmm.
And they want to be in on the details. They want to know what legal strategy is actually going to work.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to be kept in the dark and told, hey, just get excited and throw some blood at the Capitol and get angry and get arrested. People are learning that doesn't actually fix this.
That's right.
It's actually having the opposite effect.
That's right.
It's making us all look like unstable nut jobs.
That's right. The line's being drawn, bottom line. I mean, it's been going on too long, Barbara Lowe Fisher with MVIC has been fighting this fight for 40 years now, and autism's 1 in 28 at best. I think it's even more like 1 in 10 or 2, or it's crazy.
It was a fine woman named Terry, who I spoke to, who's doing some wonderful things, kind of mostly behind the scenes. She actually, I found out, lives very close to me. And anyway, so Terry, I said something about Barbara Lowe Fisher because I had heard this thing that she was part of or involved in the passage of the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. And I'm always suspicious these days after some of the things I've just seen.
Sure.
In terms of controlled opposition of people I used to donate to and show up at all their rallies, and they're huge and they seem so genuine. They scream and they rage and you go, oh, this person will save us. And so you give them more money and you do what they say, and then...
And she gets all of our donations. Barbara Lowe Fisher has been getting donations from chiropractors.
Found out, I was suspicious of her.
Right.
Until I heard some deep backstory on exactly what her involvement was.
Yeah.
How she was actually invited in. It was sort of this, look, this is going to pass, but this is your last opportunity to get in and maybe build in a couple of protections. Yeah. Into this bill. And so that was the extent of it. And now I guess in a lot of circles, she's been branded as a controlled opposition or part of the problem. And I didn't know any better. I was hearing whatever. And then I think I've got the straight scoop on this one now.
Yeah, she was the first person I called when Casey was injured before she even passed away. And very competitive with what we were doing, because she wanted to make friends with these politicians. And we're like telling her, no, you have to make enemies with them and demand for what's right. When we did the rallies in front of the Capitol and stuff. But Ingrid Castle just did a great exposure. Did you see the email that Vaccination Liberation sent out last week?
Give me some backstory on this one. I may do another video on it.
Yeah, she just sent out an email, and I was so excited. It just came out like a couple days ago, where she's mentioned in there Barbara Lowe Fisher, along with the pharmaceutical companies, passed the national vaccine compensation. It was perfect. I couldn't believe she did it. I called her right away, and I'm like, good job, Ingrid, because we all knew, we all suspected. I kind of wanted from 20 years ago believe that she was just a victim, that they took advantage of her somehow. I kind of wanted to have a little bit of trust in her, because the chiropractic community neglects donating to our ministry, which is all about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, which is what they're all about, the chiropractors.
Okay, meanwhile, we're taking a different road right now, because I just explained the backstory I got and that I find credible on Barbara Fisher is that she was invited in to something that was already determined, like, look, this is going to pass, whether you like it or not.
Exactly.
But here is an opportunity for you to add something, to amend it, that could actually help protect us.
Right. That's what I was hoping too. But what Ingrid just exposed is not. We'll have Ingrid on the show maybe in a couple weeks. I'm going to take a look at the details.
Jury's out, and who cares anyway? Because guess what? The action is with the control group. The action is going to be in federal court with our lawsuits. We've also got a great guy, it looks like, lined up for the state action that will represent my own daughter in a California state court. So but the idea is to have a lot of different things going at once. The basic theme of the strategy is, though, to challenge this whole rare slogan, which is used to justify vaccine mandates against our will, even though it's known that they can kill you. It's like, well, but if you qualify it with rare, then it's okay. Because look, we may have killed a few, but look, we're saving the herd. And that's back to the Aztec Mayan voodoo thing where they grab your kid and slit its throat and throw their head down the stairs. And the whole crowd cheers because they go, look, you know, we're appeasing the gods. Yep. You know, and so the way we look at it, though, is real simple facts that are indisputable, that nobody can argue. National disease rates, national vaccination rates. The fact that the inserts themselves in the vaccines say that it can do this and it can do that and it can do this. It's just don't worry because it's rare, you know. And so it's essentially like having a murderer in the interview room. And he's saying, well, yeah, I do sometimes maim and murder children, but hey, man, I hardly ever do it. And besides that, I'm good for the community. I'm doing so much more good for the community.
See, there's nothing mandating these pediatricians to report a reaction. That's the problem, because they're who first responds to a vaccine injury on a child. Oh. And what's going to happen is, like, if my unvaccinated son, when he was younger, came to the pediatrician with a real bad cough, it would be pertussis because he's not vaccinated. But if he is vaccinated, it's bronchitis, and they have the right to do that. It's ridiculous. Yeah,
as I understand it, human nature in general, when you're a pediatrician that can earn as much as $1.7 million in extra income per year,
I know,
maintain a high vaccination rate, no, you are not going to call anything you see a vaccine injury.
Exactly.
You're making too much money off of this killing.
And most of them don't even vaccinate their own children.
And it's all so sophisticated and scientific, and it's so secretive. Yep. And they figure, you know, they're just not going to get busted. They know what they're doing.
Absolutely. They're vaccine clinics, for sure.
They're not going to tell on themselves when they kill someone's baby.
They'd have to point the finger at themselves.
Yeah, instead, point the finger at the parents and call CPS and call the police and say, you know, this kid showed up with liquefied brains next day after a shot, but I'm not going to mention that. And if anyone asks, no, shots can't cause that, even though it says in the insert that it can. Right. So they're just running around doing this cover-up thing. And, you know, I don't have time for it right now because we just need to get into court. We need to collect the evidence, which we're methodically doing. And it's continuing on. When it slows down, I have to get up and kind of pump it up a little. We're about to do some really big things to expand the exposure here. But oh gosh, I'm sorry. I just get so upset. So what we need to do, though, and this is one of my little pet projects, once we get a big enough kind of mailing list, this might be something I want people to go out and do once we get at least the preliminary injunction stage to stop the mandates nationwide. I want people to print off stacks and stacks of certain types of information and certain types of directives and mail them to every pediatrician in their area. And it's going to explain to them that now that you've seen this, and have it go certified mail. Now that you've been notified of these facts, the next shot you give, crime against humanity.
You're liable, yeah.
Yeah, like, look, we know what you're up to.
That's right.
Killing babies for a living. We know about the money you're getting for doing it and for covering it up. don't dare try to pretend again that you don't know what you're doing. Without that part of the bribed killing machine, none of this happens.
I want to let you know, too, lately we've been getting bombarded by the new generation of vaccine injuries. My mom just hurt her shoulder from all the packages of cards she's sending out for free. She injured her shoulder. She's got to take a break for a couple of days. My point is all of a sudden they're coming in droves of the new generation of vaccine injury. I'm speaking to some of them to make sure they're not, just trolls trying to make us go broke like happened before the last time I got bombarded. These people are real. These are people that are parents like you and I, grandparents that have the last 5-10 years injuries. So, we're going back.
A lot of power in the grandparent generation.
Absolutely.
I'm a fairly new grandma, and I've got 2 grandkids now, and I'm seeing so many powerful women who have the wits about them. They have the wisdom. They have the long picture. And they have the motherly protective instincts towards their grandchildren. And that's a powerful group. Yep. They're the first ones to ask.
And they're wanting to help. They're wanting to help. The ones I've been talking to, they're like, what can I do to help you? For no money. What can I do? So we can definitely get them behind us. They're just a younger generation that's waking up to the truth about vaccinations. So, I've been doing it, Casey passed in 99, so we're talking 20 years now. So even before she passed away, I was already fighting it. So my point is the recent ones are now coming, they're finding us. They're finding us.
So. Another interesting thing that I'm just now starting on is getting some followers on Twitter for this venture. I've never been a Twitter person. I'm just now learning how it works and everything. But 30 new followers overnight. But I'm learning how this works. And what I did is I went straight to the Trump supporters, the freedom lovers, the pro-freedom kind of, I want the government out of my life. I do not want socialized medicine, this kind of group.
Yeah.
And really, really interesting how I started off with just sort of, I like freedom too, this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And people would like my comment or retweet something that I put up. Mm-hmm. And then I just kind of snuck in a little smarmy sort of James Woods sarcasm type comment where I said, question the wisdom of letting foreign powers set public health policy in the USA and also supply our vaccines. Mm-hmm. And boy, that one just tore through the Trump supporting community. They understand words like foreign powers. They understand things like bribed politicians working with foreign powers to dissolve America, to destroy us from the inside. And so I'm seeing some traction there pretty quickly in just a couple days of actually starting to mess with it a little bit. And I'm getting ready to do some major things. You'll see when it happens. It's going to include the interviews with the lawyers and things like that. But I kind of need to have a lot of materials in the backdrop already ready, like already in the hopper and ready to just press a button before I sort of open up the floodgates. Because there's going to be everything comes in waves online. So if you release one thing and it's going to get a lot of movement, want to already be ready with the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and already have places for people to go. We'll also be posting the embedded videos on our own website and a lot of other things. The reason I'm doing this part of it is that we have to wait anyway. I mean, I'm in a big rush to get into federal court, but we have to wait. If we go off before the next few judicial appointments, our odds are not guaranteed. We're not guaranteed. If we just a little longer, we can kind of, because we don't know if we're going to get a second crack at this.
Yeah.
When we would.
Yeah.
With the same evidence package and the same legal arguments, we really, really need it to go right when it reaches the appellate level. Now, the other side will appeal it if we get favorable rulings in the Ninth Circuit, but then it just goes to the Supremes.
Okay.
And the argument and the evidence is just going to be too solid. It's just going to be too solid. And there's no way to keep it out. There's no way to keep our evidence out. The majority of it's judicially noticeable.
Yeah.
You know.
So anyone that doesn't have the whole big picture of Joy's motive here is to prove the health of completely unvaccinated people. So you want to go to her controlgroup.org survey and fill it out. If you have an unvaccinated person in your family, anybody you know, a neighbor, whatever it is, have them fill out the survey. You can do it anonymously. But what she's doing is going to show the courts their health of less than 1%, correct?
Well, we're not shooting for a particular percentage.
Okay.
However, what we've seen so far is that it's less than 1% of entirely unvaccinated have any health problems at all. And so far, we don't have a single childhood cancer. And remember, cancer is the leading cause of death in vaccinated American children now, death by disease. Sure. And we also know the vaccine inserts say they've never been tested for their potential to cause cancer. And we also know that they're all full of glyphosates. And we can prove that one too, that there's glyphosates in them.
Yep.
So, and you know, but here we've got this FDA that's still maintaining that glyphosates could not possibly cause cancer. Really? That even in the face of that $2 billion judgment against Monsanto, they're still doing that. So
I know. And then nobody knows about the congressional hearings that were going on, in the early 90s, of them finding the SV40, the monkey viruses, simian virus number 40, and the cancer tumors. I mean, it's been in Congress and everything, but nobody even knows about it because this is the new generation.
But the good news about things like that, and that is something I want you to, I'm sure you've probably already gotten it to me, but please resend it, because the links or the documents related to those disclosures that occurred in Congress, that's all judicially noticeable.
Yeah, I don't think we even have access to it. I'd have to ask some people, but all I know is in 2 weeks, I'm going to replay your show. Excuse me?
It would be in the Library of Congress.
Well, you're the political person, not me. But I am interviewing John Martin.
It's not a political thing. It's a database of a record of congressional testimonies. And things like that are judicially noticeable in a lawsuit. In other words, you can bring it in and ask the court to take judicial notice of it.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'll have someone I know that can do that for sure. And we just have to, it's in 2 weeks, not next week, I'm replaying this show because we're going to be at a festival, but the following week we're interviewing Dr. John Martin. He's the one that had the Center for Complex Diseases in California back early when Casey passed away. We actually, when she was on life support, so this was 1999, took her blood and cerebral spinal fluid and shipped it over there. The pediatrician, who was a holistic pediatrician that was treating her at the time that she passed. And of course, they eventually made it to where it was under court order only. And I'm not even sure what he's doing now. I was blessed to talk to him last week, and we've scheduled a radio show the following week, 2 weeks from today, where we're going to let him share what he's finding and also the solution to it. He actually even says that he has a solution to it. So he's a very wise man. I've done presentations with him in the past. He's a pathologist, immunologist, and he's powerful man wanting to get truth out. He's always been and still is. I can feel like I talked to him 20 years ago when I talked to him last week. He's concerned about the people that are doing it to make money. He never wanted to work with anybody that has an agenda to make money on these sick children. So he's going to absolutely love what you're doing because you're not doing it for money either. This is all about... Yeah,
we're not trying to do a foundation for a cause.
Exactly.
You're just putting this together to get a solution.
That's right.
And not one single person involved in this gets paid a single penny for their time.
Yep.
Which really, really is amazing to me, how many of the most powerful, most intelligent, the brightest, the most sincere, those are the ones that show up. Mm-hmm. And they're generally the brightest amongst us.
Yep.
Have highest IQs. They're the most powerful intellectually. And in terms of effectiveness in the world, they take action and they take effective actions. And I'm so impressed with this type of model, as opposed to, hey, let's start funding a foundation.
Oh yeah.
For its own sake. For its own sake, not with a specific outcome. Which horrified me about some of these so-called leaders in the movement, that they were not at all interested, and in fact horrified to find out that we were about to move on an actual remedy to the vaccine mandates. And after I had been watching their stuff and going to their things and donating to their things and believing in them for so long, and then I find out they don't actually want an injunction against vaccine mandates to be issued. That's not the result they're looking for. I would have never guessed it. I would have thought that, I just assumed, stupid me, I just assumed the whole reason they were running around telling everyone how bad vaccines are is because they wanted the mandates to stop. Come to find out, that is not at all what they want. And many of them have become like the Cancer Foundation. The last thing on earth they want is a cure, because then they're out of business.
Ka-ching, ching. Yep.
Ka-ching, ka-ching. And not just ka-ching, ka-ching, but deviously and maybe even more terrifying is to have them working against us, and working directly with big tech censors to alert them to us and get them to shut us down. That part was really horrifying.
That's right.
See that. And it's the person that I have confirmed does this. She admitted it to me as a warning to try and get me to voluntarily back off and stop trying to move this forward. Warned me, you're going to be reported to YouTube censors and you'll be banned, because I've got an inside with them and I can fix your bacon good. And it's like, did she think I was in this for the money like she is?
Exactly.
You think I give a crap about YouTube censorship? I got thousands of surveys in before I ever even mentioned the control group on YouTube.
Wow. I see that stack of letters beside you.
Mechanisms for getting surveys.
I see the stack of letters beside you.
Oh,
What's that all about?
I'm in an overwhelmed state right now. We need more. We need. I mean, we could do it with what we've got, but the more we have, the stronger this is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, the line's being.
What's that?
I said the line's being drawn. I mean, when they have Healthy 2020 right around the corner, where they're trying to force vaccinate every child and adult by 2020, which is next year, the line's being drawn. I don't care how long you've been trying to protect your license as an attorney and or pediatrician. There's so many doctors and attorneys and people in general that know the problem with vaccinations, that is causing sickness in our babies. And it's going to be a line drawn to where they're going to have no choice. And that's what's happening right now. That's where they're starting to come out in the woodwork, because they see what they're doing in California, New York, and now Florida with SB 64. And God only knows where other states they've already proposed bills. I'm not really political, but you know the agenda. The agenda is to force everybody. Yeah,
I want to make a comment on what you just pointed out. The idea of they won't have any choice depends on who they are. Okay, Senator Pan. Oh, he's a pediatrician.
Right.
Okay, he can sign as many fake vaccination records as he likes.
Absolutely.
And nobody can prove otherwise. So all of his friends that go, well, I guess I would, but I don't want my kids. You know, the ones in the state senate. Oh, well, let me just take care of that for you, so your kids are safe. But don't worry, the rest of the kids really are pretty safe. Whatever they got to tell themselves. Or better yet, we've got to kill all these people. because CO2 is going to explode the planet into a ball of flames. Mm. So they don't see themselves as us. Right. And they have all the ways to get their own kids out of vaccination.
Yep.
So we can't rely on, well, once they come for the judge's kids. No, the judge probably, or his grandkids or whatever, he probably has a way to protect his own.
Absolutely.
Okay? These are very connected people. A lot of people within the government and health departments and the medical boards and all of this, they know how to protect their own kids from this genocide.
Where's the heart in all that? Are you telling me all these people are heartless? I mean, where's the heart when you know the damage it's doing to children and you still act like you believe in them?
Okay, that's a really good question. And I'd like to think people were not so evil. But where is the heart in that 99% of licensed pediatricians who full well know that they are murdering and maiming children for a living?
That's unbelievable.
And covering it up.
I'd hate to be there on Judgment Day from our Creator when their knee is bowed and their tongues
where were the hearts? Where were the hearts in Nazi Germany?
Yep.
You know, with the guys that were actually carrying out the genocide. Yep. I was only following orders.
Doing my job.
That's what they say now, and that's what they say here. Well, I have to. It's the law. You know, and the law requires me to call CPS on you if you don't agree to let me inject your child as well. I'm a mandated reporter for medical neglect or child abuse. And so I was only following orders. And this is how it works. So anyone that thinks they can just kind of wait until you know, this all just kind of collapses in on itself because it's going to start hurting big guys.
It's going to get very nasty.
No, we have to fight this before it reaches that point. And there are ways to do it. We have a way to do it that can actually give us a court order with a federal judge's signature on it that said, stop the mandates. We're going to start there. Because at a bare minimum, we can win the argument that at a bare minimum, we must preserve the controls for further study. Surely we will have provided enough evidence to make that argument. And on the balance of harms argument, I don't know if you know much about how these preliminary injunctions are issued. There are certain legal standards, and you have to cover each subject when you're asking for one. And one of those subjects that you have to prove you're in the right on is the balance of harms. So in other words, if the court were to issue the order we're asking for on a preliminary basis as we first file, doing that, how could that harm the defendant? And in this case, the defendant is the legislative branch of government. How are they going to argue that they're somehow injured when we've got, look, if we lose this remaining 0.09% of true controls that still exist, there won't be a way to definitively assign a numerical risk factor to vaccination, and therefore there will be no way to assess whether or not they're good for public health. So we already have numbers showing definitively that they're destroying public health, and that's our argument in our underlying lawsuit, and it'll be up to a jury to find what they believe is the most credible evidence in front of them in terms of what the risk factors are. Are they going to believe our numbers, or are they going to believe a slogan that says rare, where they don't have a single number to back it up? Because as I've stated, you cannot establish a numerical risk factor without controls. And they have never once, ever collected a single shred of health data on an entirely unvaccinated control. Not even one.
I know.
They've never just grabbed one person that's unvaccinated and said, hey, let's study and try to figure out why you're so much healthier than everybody else.
Right?
Yeah. they know what the answer is, and that's why they're doing everything they can to eliminate the remaining controls in the country. And of course, that's the conspiracy theorist type of argument. I believe it's accurate, but that's not the one we make in court. We just say, look, this is what's left of the control group. We need to preserve them. At a bare minimum, we need to preserve them for further study, because we need something other than a marketing slogan to determine whether or not these mass vaccination programs are actually helping public health. You can't take this subjective adjective and say that it's a scientific term that we can rely upon in setting public health policy.
That's right.
But that's currently what's been happening. And why? No one's challenged it.
Yep.
Nobody's challenged it yet. Well, we're going to change that. We're challenging.
We've been waiting for you.
So
never been done.
Yeah. I'm going to leave the jury out on that again. I had heard some things where I was starting to lean in on maybe she was a victim of the whole process or whatever. But you know what it really always comes back to? Fruits.
And I'll tell you her fruits, because I worked with her when I had the nonprofit. She was on our conference call, and we did the first rally in front of the Capitol in the Homeland Security bill, and they slipped the provision protecting the drug companies, where parents couldn't come, and I had pictures of their child on the chairs, like 300 of them, that said, sorry, we're unable to attend, but we're under siege. The night before, we get the call that the provision's been taken out. Then they go and slip it into the next bill after 9/11 called the BioShield bill. We took out full-page Washington Post articles in the newspaper. I can show them in my storage right now. Congress Daily ads addressing them with all of our children's name and everything. The second rally she showed up to, even though on the conference call before the rally, she literally was trying to talk to my director of media relations, all my board, and convince us that we have to make friends with these politicians. And we were like, no. We have to hold them responsible for injuring our babies and get aggressive about it. So anyway, she shows up to the rally and she runs to me like, the Luke and Laura General Hospital thingy. Like she's known me forever because I was so successful, or her father used me, excuse me. I don't take any of the glory. It's all about the creator of the universe here and what we're doing to the blood of children and adults in general. But anyway, she runs to me and she acted like she knew me forever. And I said, Barbara, you need to jump over that fence. You've been walking for 20 years now. Too many babies are being injured. So she knows that and she's always been trying to, stomp on what I've been doing for Father, because again, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Vaccines belong in the garbage can, period.
Yeah.
There is no safe vaccine. The two words like oxymoron. It's like a giant shrimp. You know what I'm saying?
Now, the fact is, there's no way to approach this. It's kind of like that scene in Braveheart where Mel Gibson's there with, they got everybody assembled, and the so-called leaders of the Scots are going to go cut another deal with the king for more land. Mm-hmm. If they don't fight today. And so, but they're, the king's going to reinstitute prima nocta, and
what really frustrates me more than anything is that money. It's not about making money to us parents, and the donations from chiropractors, especially because Joseph Mercola is the one that's really promoted her and a bunch of these big chiropractors. All the donations go to NVIC. Nothing comes to us. Meanwhile, we're the ones sending out the free Educate Before You Vaccinate cards for over 20 years now. We're the ones doing the rallies in front of the, yeah, we're not getting any donations from chiropractors.
Troops, the boots on the ground, actually winning, taking territory. You're right, and she's actually out there taking territory.
Right, and she's making a salary.
And all the money is going to people that aren't even trying to direct us. They're not even good leaders in terms of.
They're trying to stop us.
But they're. So, but what I was saying about the scene in the Braveheart movie.
Yeah.
So the negotiators, the Scots that are going to go negotiate with the king's men for more land and more titles for them personally, not for the people. they're pretty upset when Mel Gibson's got his blue face and he just tropples over there to their little private secret meeting. And before he heads out, someone says, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" "I go to pick a fight." Okay, so all these people that think they're going to negotiate with pharma and position themselves with fat wallets as the so-called leaders of the anti-vax movement or whatever, sorry, I'm going to blow right past you. You may not like me. You may be trying to get me banned off of social media, but it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. We're already well on our way. And anyone with 2 brain cells left to rub together, once they find out what we're up to, they know. They know we're for real, and we're actually going to get a remedy. We're not going to dance around with engineered to fail lawsuits that argue the same crap that's lost 100 million times already. That's right. The religious rights argument, which I love the argument in its essence. We should have religious rights in the United States, but this is not a good strategy given the climate we're in right now, given that the Supreme Court has already said, look, we can kill you if we want. You know, the government can actually kill you if they want. I don't know where in any of that someone thinks, well, the government's already ruled they can kill me if they want. A few of us, at least. But somehow they're going to respect my religious rights. That argument is not going to work, and anyone who thinks it's going to is deceived, unaware, being misled. It's just, you know, they've taken that battlefield. They already have that territory. It is a suicide waste mission to wander into it over and over again. All it does is waste our resources. You know, once we get our right to not be forcibly injected back, well, our underlying relief can be pointing out and ask for a declaration that basically clarifies the fact that once the government begins violating individual rights for any reason, that's the beginning of the end of your nation. Because that is, in fact, the ideal, the collectivist socialist herd mentality for public health that led to what is now this nation's most catastrophic public health crisis in the history of our country. I mean, this is it. This is the big one. This is the one that can take us down as a nation if we don't turn it around fast. It's clearly the vaccines causing it.
Absolutely. See, the problem, though, because the drug companies fund the medical schools and write their textbooks, I was told at one of my presentations, because I actually have the disease like polio and tetanus, how they were coming down because of better sanitation and nutrition way before the introduction of the vaccination. And I had a nurse at one of my presentations that told me afterwards, or even during, she said, hold on, they showed those same charts in medical school, but only from where the vaccine was introduced down. So all this,
it's
they're
like
not showing.
Science, where they pretend, they just hide the inconvenient numbers. They pretend there was no mini ice age.
Right.
They pretend that all of this, so they start the chart at wherever the solar maximum began. Exactly. And they pretend there's no history behind that. And what does get out, they corrupt and falsify anyway and hope we can't get our hands on the original documents.
Or they change it from polio to a septic meningitis, so it looks like one of them go up and the other one goes down. The epidemiological studies are all funded by the drug companies. It's insane. Yeah. And what I believe...
We need a real epidemiological study that isn't funded by any of them.
Exactly. But what I feel they're going to do is, like they're saying there's Ebola breakout in leprosy, I think they're saying now in California, I saw somewhere. You know, they're going to come up with this miraculous vaccine, and the dumbed down masses who don't realize that the Rothschilds or Rockefellers who own the drug companies are behind the campaigning of the media as well. Most of them, my mother even watches Fox News all day long. Okay, so Fox News is going to be telling my mother there's an Ebola outbreak and they have this miraculous Ebola vaccine. I'm not picking on my mom here. She would never vaccinate. I'm just saying that's the masses out there. They think these people are telling them the truth, and if there's a crisis like that and the U.S. government, implements martial law and forces it on everyone for our safety, you follow me? So that's why I'm kind of anxious.
What their plot is.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. In the state of California, anyway, they don't even have to have this so-called emergency. So in 1905, with the Jacobson versus Massachusetts case, they were saying the holding in that case was, in a public health emergency, you can do all these awful things to people, right? To protect the herd, and with no due process. But what they did in the state of California with these mandates is they said, we're always in an emergency. This is a permanent state where we force vaccinate you. We don't have to wait for a sudden outbreak of anything anymore. We're now under the assumption that we will forever be in an emergency environment that requires all of the children to get at least 73 shots. Oh, and a blank check to pharma to include as many more shots as they feel they would like to market or kill us with, without having to pass any new laws. It's just opened up a pipeline to all of our kids' arms and legs and wherever else they're injecting them.
Right. On the basis of germs causing disease, Louis Pasteur's worst research compared to Antoine Béchamp's. I mean, it's like germs don't cause disease. It's the inner condition of you upon exposure. And that's why my unvaccinated children have immune systems that our creator gave them. They the difference of vaccinated compared to unvaccinated.
Why, air immune stuff that was so popular, people would take this little supplement or something. I think it was fizzy water, and it had like vitamin C, A, D, and a few other things, and some good minerals in it. And if you took that before you took a flight, you would not be likely to pick up diseases from the other passengers. So but the thing about the way we're going in on this, because they're going to have 1,000,000,001 well-paid expert witnesses against us. Okay. So we come in from the perspective of, well, what are we experts at? And what do we already have that we don't have to prove and that they cannot refute? So judicially noticeable facts, national disease stats, and the percentage of Americans that are vaccinated. So those stats are an accounting of what the health of vaccinated people looks like. We're the experts. We're the world's leading expert on health data for unvaccinated people.
Nobody's did it,
They don't have any numbers. They don't have a single number with which to refute ours on that side of the evidence package. So we may not be experts at, I'm not going to get on the stand as an expert witness on immunology or bacteria or any of this. Because I don't qualify. I mean, I really do, folks. I know an awful lot. I know a thing or two about a thing or two. But in the legal realm, I don't qualify. But I do qualify as an expert on something else.
That's right. The health of unvaccinated
I will
people.
go in and in an area where they don't have any experts.
All right, we're running out of minutes now. Thecontrolgroup.org. Anything else, Joey, before we close now, because you're amazing.
Thecontrolgroup.org. 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 Go there. Pitch in. Even if you are vaccinated, but you'd like to see a solution to this because you don't want your kids to get any more shots, go there. Find out what we're doing and see how you can help. You might know some unvaccinated people that will participate in the survey, or maybe you want to volunteer to help us in some way. Write to me at thecontrolgroup.org. Go to the website. There's a little form to fill out. I answer all messages. So
we appreciate you, sweetheart, so much, and it's always an honor to have you on our show. You're listening to Vic Fellowship, and our shows can be accessed on the front page of our vacinfo.org website on the belly of a little boy flexing his muscles. We're on every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Our contact number is 800-939-8227. If you have any questions about today's show, please call the voicemail line 862-800-6805 and leave your name, your question, and let them know it's for our What in the Cell is Going On show. We thank Progressive Progressive Radio Network for allowing us to give you this uncompromised truth. And y'all bless.